episode 375 of This Is Whole Life. It's live from Orlando, Florida, but only live to us.
The second floor of the Whole Life building where excellence in broadcasting happens. Yes.
Oh yes, I like that. We may have to finally.
You can tell he's been on the radio.
This isn't the golden microphone, but it is the coal fired microphone
of coal. I love it. So we're gonna do as always. If you're new to the podcast, as many people are, the more I find out, the more I get.
What, you're new? This is your first time listening? Hey, I'm talking to you. You know who I am.
That's right.
We are so happy to have you here. I want you to know I personally am welcoming you to this show. Welcome,
Ken Wetmore.
And if you aren't new to this show, you better welcome them too. I want to hear it. Wherever you're at, say welcome. I don't care whether your coworkers look at you funny.
That's right. Do it. No matter if your headset's on. Just
say
do
welcome.
It. Welcome.
There, you heard that. You feel welcome now, don't you? All right.
Yeah.
So This Is Whole Life is where we discuss the topics and the messages being discussed every week here at WholeLife Church in Orlando, Florida. And someone asked me, where's Melanie? Melanie is gone currently, but don't wake her up. Well, no, maybe wake her up.
No, you got to leave her alone. She's working on her dissertation.
Yep.
So she's taking. I would say I was going to say a break, and that's not the right word. She's taking some time, and we want her to get this thing wrapped up and taken care of. So she's taking this month to finish it up, prepare for the defense that she's got to put out there. So
she said she's
get to work, Melanie. If you're listening to this, we question why you're listening.
She better not be listening to this.
You better not be. So I won't tell on her. She may or may not have emailed me. I may have been like, "Who are you? And why are you talking to me? Who is this strange person?" So, get back to work.
Get back to work. So as usual, the three of us, Ken Wetmore, senior pastor, Jeff Sincamani, who is you're an associate pastor, but he's
we like to call him our senior pastor.
And so if you have any questions, it's Jeff.
So a lead pastor and only senior because of time spent here. Seems like forever.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
That's all it takes for the title. And me, I am Randy, and I am the digital ministries director here.
Our senior digital ministries director.
And senior podcast guy. So let's go there. So before we get going, I've got two housekeeping. We got an email this week. And this is directed at Ken, so we're going to give Ken first crack at it. And it says, "Hi, podcast team. We, Keith and I, are regular listeners to the podcast and really like it. But we have a question and some thoughts about something Ken said in this past week's episode." So that would have been I Am He, episode 374. So you can go back and check that out if you haven't heard it yet. When he described Joseph's time in Egypt as a slave and as a prisoner, Ken said he was alone and picked himself up by his bootstraps. Is that what Ken really meant? Genesis does not read that way. The Bible says God was with Joseph and blessed everything he did. It's also clear that it was God, not Joseph, who was interpreting the dreams. Joseph himself says so. What do you think? Thank you for your time, Pam and Keith Nolan. Thank you, Pam and Keith. It was good to see you at the Fish House last Saturday as well. They don't know what the Fish House is. Well, you'll know what the Fish House is now that I've told you the Fish House, because I saw you there and we said hello. But nobody else will know. That's an inside joke for just Pam and Keith.
The episode's coming up. I saw you underneath the.
That's it. That's it. It's just kind of like that.
Yeah.
All right. So,
what do you think, Ken? Is that what you
Pam
meant?
and Keith? Way to call me out. You are correct. That came out of my mouth, and I immediately wanted to shove it back in. And you are absolutely 100% correct. Joseph did not pick himself up by his bootstraps. I will say, he took advantage of the help that the Lord was giving him, but definitely the Lord was with him, and the Lord took care of him and blessed him. So can't give him the credit for that. So way to correctly call me out on that.
I like that, though, because that means that we know you're listening and you're actually putting thought in.
Yeah, that was a test. Now that I think about it, that was a test. It wasn't that something.
And the funny part is, usually, that's one of our big pet peeves around here is bootstrap theology, and so usually we're usually pretty quick to punk people down when they say something like that. Yeah. But I'm going to blame Melanie because she's not here.
She wasn't here to keep us in line.
She wasn't.
That's
here
what I was going to say. We all heard that.
We all heard it.
We're missing our theologian.
That's it. Writing papers and stuff.
But fortunately, we have Keith and Pam to keep us on the straight and narrow.
That is it. So
I feel like you might want to go back and edit that last episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Just put that in there. That's Ken speaking heresy. Every time that's just Ken speaking heresy.
Jeff, you had something?
Well, I'm just curious as to how you would, in one sentence, reword that.
Jeff, why are you making it harder on me already? I mean, how would I reword it? I think I'd just reword it that...
well, I was wrong, but here's why I was wrong.
God, that Joseph didn't have anyone with him, but all he needed was the one, God.
Well, see,
and God was with him. And
I'll push back a little bit also, only in the fact that when we were comparing the woman at the well who, at least in her adult life that we know of, didn't really have anyone or anyone left. And I had made the point that Joseph at least had his family, and that was up until a point. He had his dad and he had his little brother wwho doted over him.
Well, I do think...
In the adult version, though, yeah.
I do think that, Pam, you bring up a good point. But on the other side of this, and this is what I think the point that you were trying to make, and that's why the reframe. but it is not uncommon for all of us to feel quite alone in those situations.
Yeah.
Especially when prayers go up and or supplications, whatever we're asking for, and nothing seems to happen right away. So the point being, this, we don't know if it was, how long that period of time was.
Yeah.
But it did feel very much alone for Joseph.
I think the point is that he wasn't with his family. He was, but at the same time, I think that the point that Pam and Keith are making is incredibly valid, and I'm glad that you clarified it, because I think that we all have to come alongside the blessings that God is giving us. I don't think that just because – I think that if Joseph had just, sat on his tuchus and done nothing, I don't know whether God would have – been able to bless the way that God was. But I also want to be careful, because I also am not a big fan of the whole God helps them that help themselves thing, which kind of makes it seem like it's you who starts things. But I do think that when God opens a window, think about Peter in jail, and the angel comes, wakes him up, and says, hey, get up and go. The angel didn't pick him up and carry him out. They say, hey, you got to get up and go out. And so to that sense, but no, back to back to the main point there, that this was God blessing Joseph. Joseph did not pick himself up by his bootstraps and go, and by the way, God, thanks for a minor assist over here. It was God doing it. And so great point. Glad you caught it. I'm glad I gave you the opportunity to
that one, we'll tighten that up so it won't keep falling in on you.
So Randy's, I'm sitting here holding the microphone with my hands, pushing it away from my face because it keeps bopping me in the face. And Randy's like, just
tighten that one piece up.
You do not know the dangers that we encounter when we come in.
We're and
I feel like we ought to. I think, Randy, we ought to like video these podcasts. I think
sometimes.
Well, once in a while, maybe when.
Well, I think it would create better behavior in here if we were videotaping this thing.
Keep your hands up and don't be fidgeting, and pay attention. Shucks. The other part that I wanted to go with real quick, and I always loved the way Andy laid it out, was that God can work with a ship that's pulling itself out of port. But if you're not moving, there's not much he can do to get you moving and to be. So while I wouldn't put that under bootstrap methodology or at all, it's just that you're hearing the call and you're like, okay, I have to do something. I have to start moving, and then God can steer you. Just even if you don't know the direction, get moving.
Well, I think that's huge. I think that there's, for all of you that are listening in, I think that's a very good point. I think that there is maybe nothing more important for each of us to do than to engage somehow, some way, whether it's complaining, whether it's anger, or whether it's just me on my knees realizing I am completely helpless.
Yeah.
That's where God wants. I mean, praise is good, but he'll take our anger too. I think that's the whole point, is he wants us to come to him on any level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place that he continues to draw us from. Hey, if there's anything that we could do to say, where does God want me? He wants you in communion with him on any level.
That's nice. All right, one more housekeeping thing. If you are listening, and I want to say the name was Eric, but I can't be sure, there was a voicemail that came into the number that I give out every episode, 407-965-1607. You can send text or voicemail. a voicemail came in I don't know what in the Googleverse. Somehow it disappeared. It's not in. I can't find it. It's not in a deleted. It's not anywhere. And it was about the discussion that we'd had 2 weeks ago in episode 373 about baptism. And it was someone that I believe mentioned Ken's name and that had either worked with Ken in the past or been a church member in the past, and they listened to our podcast here. Send your thoughts again. I would love to go over them. I don't know what happened. I looked for them last week before the episode. I looked for them again this week, and I went back into the admin panel, and it's just gone, and I have no idea where because I know I didn't delete it. It's just missing. So if you're listening and you had sent us a voicemail, please just go ahead and send it again. We'd love to cover your question. So as you know, we are in the series The Chosen, the TV show. We are on, this is episode 6 for us of the podcast, and of course there's more episodes than we're going to cover in this. As always, spoiler alerts, just know that we're going to be talking about things that have happened on The Chosen, and if you're intending to watch, you started, you haven't gotten there, you haven't caught up with where we are, and you don't want spoiler alerts, you might want to just kind of wait, go back and watch the show. And oh, by the way, if you swipe up in today's show notes, there's actually a link to this episode, and you can watch it before we discuss the rest of it. So it'll take you right to thechosen.tv, and you can watch it. So this was season 2, episode 3, Matthew 4:24, and just from a total... I always got to say something interesting about the episode, and this one is the oneer episode. And so if you are in any kind of media film production, you know what a oneer is. It just means that it's one take. It's one camera, it's one take. That means that there's no cuts, there's no retakes, there's no other angles.
And there's no sun eventually.
And there's no sun. So if someone makes a mistake with their dialogue, they have to just play it off and go with it. And hopefully it's not too bad, which it doesn't seem like they had any of those. But they were really their whole reason was they were losing light. They were running out of daylight. The weather had been bad, and they had to get this. It was the last day. They had no more time, and Dallas didn't know what to do. And they were just like, look, so 15 minutes out of the 33:15 runtime is a one shot. Meaning one camera is just following them around, and that poor guy with the boom pole, that's all I'm saying. Because if you've ever worked on set and you've had to stand there with the 4 or 5 pound microphone hanging off the end of a boom pole at 15 or 20 feet extended, your arms are tired after about 33 seconds. And whoever it was made 15 minutes because they're walking all over the place. There's no way that was on any kind of a jib or whatever. There was definitely moving out there with them. So that's a little bit... If you watch the episode and you don't really know that much about production, just watch the first 15 minutes and realize that's just one camera following them around, no mistakes, and that's pretty awesome.
And it's not just following them around. They need to know cues of when they go in. There's no director yelling, and it's just crazy. Yeah.
To really get it right, you're almost like a play that's being filmed and audio captured up close and personal for 15 minutes with no mistakes outside. That's just almost
crazy.
Yeah, that's just really, really crazy. And fun fact, we did a music video here for Lifelong Worship about 3 years ago, and the whole thing is a oneer.
Yeah, but
the beach.
It was only 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, you weren't carrying the piano.
That's true. That's true.
We carried an empty piano around the beach and up the beach walk.
Oh, that one.
4 flights of stairs about 12 times to get all the takes we needed to get one correct oneer.
That's right.
Yeah, that was. Have to just hit me up in the lobby sometime and ask Wycliffe. Ask him how his forearms are feeling after carrying that, because he was the guy with the big smile on his face playing the piano supposedly on the beach, and the rest of us would have to pick the piano up and move it. Oh man, it was fun. It was not fun. No, I lied. That was not fun. So Ken, this was another one of your favorites, right?
Yeah.
Why?
The oneer.
The oneer. That was the easy answer. The oneer.
No, in all seriousness, I think what I loved about this episode is just the contrast between Jesus healing all day long and his disciples destroying each other around the fire, and just the patience that you see from Jesus. You get the feeling he knew exactly what was happening around that fire, and it's like, whatever. I'm too tired to deal with you guys tonight.
But can you imagine? I mean, the emotions that brings out when you hear them talking about some things trivial, some things important. They're switching off. They're playing some type of board game with marbles.
Yeah.
They're talking about how come why haven't you been healed yet? To little James, Thomas asks him that, and he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, what if he's not going to accept me? Or what if all these questions, and Thomas is like, what do you think he doesn't know?
I like that one.
And they're having this conversation, and it really makes you feel like in that conversation or conversations that happen around, especially around the one or early on, that you're just living like a fly on the wall, because you're catching one person walking, hey, it's your turn. Well, I'll take my shift. We got to do this. Hey, are you hungry? Hey, it's time to eat. And it's all this stuff happening in you. And you kind of get the feeling that Jesus is off in the background. But even the first time we saw that episode, when they're talking about Jesus healing, like, oh, the line is still 50 people deep, and they're getting upset and they're getting anxious. And to me, you can almost feel Jesus on the other side, just being like inundated with people. You can almost imagine him smiling, but just being like, it's been all day. They didn't expect this. And maybe, well, he probably expected it, but nobody else did. And they're all having their day. But while Jesus is actually healing, like Ken mentioned in the message, he healed them all.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy to think about that?
It's hard to wrap your mind.
Them all.
Yeah, it wasn't just a select few. And,
right.
This starts those questions. And then, like you just mentioned, Jesus' mother shows up. And then that's where the wonder ends. And she's like, hey, you guys look hungry and tired. I'll help make dinner. And that's where they cut finally. And it's it is pretty much dark then. Yeah. And then they start the fire scene that we showed and that was talked about. But I loved when the conversation starts so innocently about, well, what would you do for, what is it? Andrew asks, what would you do for all the money you could spend, or however much money it was? And would you run through the town naked without clothes on? And they're like, nah, I ain't going to do that. Or everyone has their different answers, and the women are in on it too. And it's just kind of easy around the meal banter that so quickly turns into, well, why don't we ask Matthew, what's it like to have money? And it's like, well, that's not polite. Big James is like, that's not a polite question to talk about, personal and money. Yeah. And they're like, well, Peter's like, hey, Matthew's had it, we haven't. And then it turns into not just the money, but now we're getting personal.
Yep.
You're a Jew like the rest of us, but you didn't participate. You didn't suffer enough. You didn't take it seriously. And we were supposed to do this together. And, I'm never going to forgive you, and all these things. And it was like, for me, there's two conversations in my life I can remember that were very similar to that, with people that were both sides, Christian, but totally on different sides of ideology,
right,
theology, even methodology of how we do anything. And when you get to that point, you can't just walk away and think that there isn't going to be lasting hurt. Somebody has to make amends for you to go past that. And I just thought that the way that they captured that scene set up so perfectly with what Ken brought later in the message. Ken said, that person, once you get to that point, I've been there. There's that immediately, the first time I saw that episode, I had one of those with a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, and who one person plays the antagonist, and in the conversation, and you end up saying something that you wished you hadn't said, even if it wasn't like it wasn't intentional to be hurtful, until later you realize how hurtful your comment was, because it comes up later in another conversation about, well, you remember when you said that? I'm like, well, you didn't. How was that offensive? And it just makes you realize how, when you're having conversations like this, or we look at each other's problems or sins or our perceived notion of who somebody is, where they come from, you have to be really careful until you know somebody to make those kinds of assumptions, because even an implied assumption, even if it's a gentle implication, can cause lasting effect. And we've all seen that. how do we handle that even well within our church ranks? Because I think we've all seen the the outcroppings of what those conversations have left people with. And I feel like we do a pretty good job of communicating that here at Whole Life, but yet I also know how I am sometimes personally and how I think and how I act and things I say. And I don't have any really good, solid answers of how sometimes those conversations just don't go the way you want them to. And that can be so difficult to get past. How do we approach those kinds of conversations when they come up and say what we think we need to say lovingly? I don't know how that process starts, that we really, because I feel like you got to protect the family, so to speak.
I kind of, while I was watching that, and you're bringing up a really important question, I think, and that is that what would have been, and by the way, we kind of did this a little bit at church, which I thought was clever of you, Ken. But if the disciples would have been in line, what would they have asked Jesus? And because literally what they were doing around the fire was exposing themselves, and exposing much more than their dissatisfaction with Matthew or their complaints about how Peter had kind of betrayed the other fishermen.
Right. Yeah.
But I think around that fire, we have to, they were all not in the line. They were actually just, kind of almost impatiently waiting for Jesus to be done so they could, whatever they wanted. But what would they have needed from Jesus had they been in the line? And I think that's a part of this whole thing, because it did show Jesus' humanity. And why didn't, nobody was helping Jesus at all, except for his mom came by and did some help after he was done.
Yeah, they did a little crowd control in the line.
They did crowd control, right?
Yeah.
But there is a side to this that, I think we find ourselves wrapped up in those discussions, and Jesus comes by. I love what you said just now. It's like, whatever. That's almost the feel you get from Jesus. It's like, you guys are dealing with so much minutia in your life. You're worried about your anger, not being met, or some of your jealousies about money and so forth. And yet, what is it that actually really does need to be healed?
Yeah. I mean, for Peter, it's palpable.
Yeah.
His almost hatred for what God has put the Jews through all of this, and then somehow those of us that are okay, we've banded together, but you didn't even try. You totally chose what you chose. And
yeah, so in our positions, whether there be leadership or, is it piety? Is it jealousy? Is it a sense of, what is it that needs to be addressed in my life? And I think that's the part. I love the juxtaposition that Dallas puts all these things, and he does it creatively, which I'm really grateful for. But, what is it that we actually need?
Well, and little James and Thomas's discussion is a perfect example of if they had been in line, they were in crowd control.
Is that what James would have asked for? I think it would have been, probably. Yeah.
But he hasn't asked yet.
Yeah, that was a conversation that kind of leads to another episode.
Right, it leads to another episode, which is my favorite, which is coming up in 2 weeks, so don't miss it. And I will be there on Friday night to make sure that I let you know why I like it so much.
I sure hope I don't mess it up for you.
Yeah, well, maybe. No. Who knows where you're going at this point with the message, right? It could be anywhere.
You think you can guess where I'm going to go with that?
I think I can guess. I think I'm hoping anyway. But I just feel like I can resonate with little James so much, and Thomas, yet he's the kind of the new guy still, and he's just like, well, you think Jesus doesn't know that you have this hip problem, and that you think he doesn't know that you'd like to be healed. But then, well, I can't spoil it now. So don't do it. That was almost a spoiler alert. But he's still left with sitting there like so many of us, Like we don't want to be vulnerable for whatever reason. We don't want to put ourselves out there, even to Jesus, to say this needs to get healed in my life. And what is it? Is it pride? Is it like we know we're not hiding things from him, right? I mean, I don't.
Well, I think it's deep. I do think it's deep that James is wrestling with that and still questioning at that time.
Okay, well, one other thing, though. I wanted to, from a historical perspective, which you guys would have a whole better idea of than I would this have been, because you asked a question early on, kind of like, hey, what would get you on a plane to Seattle? If you heard that, hey, there's this guy and he is healing everything and everyone that comes his way, would that be enough? Or is there something in your life that's enough that would put you on a plane or a car or hitchhiking, however you had to do it to get there, to get healed? Was that something that would have the same stigma in this time in the Bible as it does now? Because I feel like faith healers are 2 or 3 rungs below lawyers. Sorry, any lawyers that might be listening. Just kidding. But the idea that
you're not apologizing to the faith healers, though?
No, not really. I don't think so.
Right.
I just, people were bringing obviously all these people, and Jesus heals them all. And I'm just wondering, would it have carried that same stigma that it has today, or did people know enough about Jesus at that time that this was like, wait a minute, we cannot miss Jesus because this is my chance? I'm not. I don't know, and maybe there's not an answer.
I think it would have been a little bit different for them than it would have been for us. I think that we live in a very science-based world. I think they lived in a little bit more of a mystical world where where
everything was supernatural.
Yeah, everything was supernatural. Solar eclipses were something supernatural happening. So I think that in that sense that it was a little bit different. I don't think what changes though is that you would still to travel a distance to see somebody, you'd have to have really kind of thought that they probably could do something for you, because traveling would have been more difficult in that time in that place than it is today. It's not like you could book your hotels ahead of time. It's right. Like you get on the road, you have to figure out, you hope that you find a village where you can eat, where you can stay, where you're not assaulted, because there's some stories about that in the Bible. So it would have taken some real work to kind of go do this. And so you kind of think that people would have had to really kind of think, yeah, this person could do it, because there are plenty of mystical things at that time in that place, but still people, I'm sure, were still somewhat skeptical of, can this person really? And because I feel like there was one place, and I'll let Pam and Keith fact check me on this, but I think there's some place where it says that no blind man had been healed since. Anyway, so I guess my point is that there were certain healings that were very unusual that Jesus was doing. They weren't things that were happening at that time in that place. So in this story where it says Jesus healed all, see, that's the other part that kind of confuses me, because when you said what would bring you, I know what would put me on a plane to Seattle. Yeah,
there's things in my life I know what would put me on a plane. Mm-hmm. And yet, I also don't think that if I was on a plane to Seattle, that those things would be healed.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's certain things that that I've prayed for. I'm putting this in words in other people's mouths here, that I've prayed for that, and maybe it's the time, it's the God of generations, and sometimes those promises and different things take time, but. And I don't want to give the spoiler away to what's coming, because it's just
you really do want to give it away, Randy. I can tell you really do, but
it's killing me, and I'm not going to do it. But in 2 weeks, we're going to come back to this, I promise, because therein lies the problem. Because what if certain people had done certain things, and then would the result have been the same? So that's the part that really, and again, this is just because we've seen the other episodes. And you see it in life. There's certain people that, we prayed, we did this, and it's like, yeah, I did every one of those things, and I don't feel for a second I was any less earnest in my desire or my belief or my faith or any of the things you could throw on there. and it just doesn't seem to get better, or it doesn't seem to be healed. And maybe it's just me being confused on what's been healed, or in what time frame, or in what way God decides to do things. So that this story intrigued me in that way also, that God healed all. And I'm like, that if I could have flown to that place, then I would have gone for sure, because all got healed. But you don't know that going in.
What if, and this is a big wrench, but I don't mean to do this. What if?
Yes, you do, because you're going to say it.
What if they walked out of the tent still with a broken leg? And I'm not giving anything away. Still with a broken leg. But they understood what that broken leg was for in their life. And they were healed of their...
Doggone it.
What if they walked out of that tent and they weren't healed of their...
Physical,
but they were healed of why that was such a malady for them.
Maybe spiritually?
Yeah.
So maybe it could have been that, spiritually and or physically all were healed, but maybe not every last piece?
I would say that the text really indicates... and you can take it for what you want. But if you're going to read the text, at least the way that I read it, when you take a look at the original language, it very much implies physical healing.
That's what I think. I think it does imply that. But so we're looking at everybody that came to Jesus was just needing physical healing. Is that what we're looking at?
The way that Matthew 4:24 reads, because that's where I really wanted to go with this.
Okay.
when I was like, well, because I was wanting to say, and Jesus also healed their emotional needs. And when you look at the verbiage, the way that what Jesus healed, it's pretty, the way if I said, and Jesus healed all their physical, you would say, well, that pretty much implies that's pretty much the way it reads.
But it doesn't list anything outside of physical, right? It doesn't say he cast out demons.
It actually does. It says that he cast out demons, but it's a very physical way of wording it. And so anyway, the
what
point
you saw.
Yeah. I think that what we shouldn't get too hung up on is clearly there were people that Jesus didn't heal. It says all the ones that came to him he healed, but we have Peter having a healing a man after Jesus' resurrection, right, in the book of Acts, he was blind, right, at the temple.
Yeah.
Sure, you have to think that Jesus walked past this person a couple times. It had only been a couple months, and the guy had been blind for, I don't know, decades.
Yeah.
So Jesus must have walked past that person. Why didn't he choose to heal that person while he was here? Did that... You can ask that, when you talk about the pool of Siloam, Jesus heals one person. It says there were multitudes of people that were trying to get into that pool. Jesus goes and finds one person, meaning that Jesus, and I remember seeing a preacher one time do a sermon about this, and he reenacted what Jesus would have had to do to get to this guy, and he shows him, he's like taking these big steps over top of people, and having and then he goes to this one person, heals them. And so I think that what we shouldn't lose track of is that in this one verse, it says that Jesus healed all that came to him. And yet at the same time, in other places, it becomes quite evident that Christ doesn't heal everybody in that place. And I think that in Matthew's trying to make the point, very much trying to make the point that there was nothing too big for Jesus to heal.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And
in their minds, physical healing was a much bigger thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the physical healing, it was the way I read through the Gospels is that when Jesus does the physical healing, that was the proof that he was also able to do the spiritual healing side of it.
Yeah. And I loved how you incorporated the kind of casting our needs for healing on Jesus with the paper, the little papers, the sticky notes, and the glue up front, and having people being involved. And if you check out our social media, probably on Thursday before we have it all put together, maybe tomorrow or maybe today as you listen, as today we're recording, it's Tuesday, tomorrow Wednesday, it could be up, but it's probably going to be Thursday before Tammy has it all completed and a picture taken. And then of course you'll see it this Saturday if you come back.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think we're going to put any pictures up until Saturday.
Oh, we're going to make them wait?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we can...
I mean, we can put some pictures up of people. We can put some pictures up of people working on it.
Okay.
But
maybe
I
it's
think
a teaser.
The final product, I think
we'll wait until...
You need to tune in on Sabbath because...
maybe we would have put Stanley out by that.
Yeah,
to do that in the morning.
Idea,
that way we can do that.
I think that, for those of you who are worshiping online,
yeah,
Stanley, we'll put Stanley right by it so you'll be able to see it. But
because Stanley took a lot of your requests. Yeah. There was a second service.
That was really cool, by the way. That was really cool that Stanley was writing down on behalf of the people watching online and putting them on there for them. I think that was pretty cool.
We're blessed in house to have Stanley. You guys are blessed that I know that listen to the podcast and also our online members that watch every week, and just to have Stanley here in the chat. I try to join him when I can, but he always has such a good handle on things, and he's just a warm, friendly face that you get used to seeing every week. And that was a great just jump in and make sure that everyone got a chance to put their piece of paper on that. I can't wait to see it all put together this week, and so we'll definitely make sure that you guys see that too. But I almost feel like this might be one of the most important ideas that we can come to as a church community, as a church family, is to be able to talk to the person next to us. Maybe not with every deep, dark problem that we have, but even to be able to start with the smaller things of, how was your week? Oh, I was fine. Instead of, I don't know, wasn't that great? I screwed up at work, and then I got yelled at, and this didn't go right. And for someone to just go, oh yeah, and not necessarily have another story or something from themselves.
I want you to know I'm sorry for yelling at you, Randy.
I don't think there was time. If anyone had seen Ken's calendar last week, he would be forgiven for anything, even if it was yelling, because Ken was like quadruple booked every day of the week, and it was watching Ken move around was just a little bit like, he's going to make it. I'm pretty sure. I think he's pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he's going to make it. I think he can handle it. Yeah. But I just feel like those are ways that, and especially I know it's hard for those that are more introverted, don't really like to do too much communicating. It's like, I go to church and I love it. I get my fill of people and I got to go home. I need it to be peace and quiet for a couple hours. And it's not always easy to do that, but I really felt like that is something, and I'm assuming this is something we're going to continue working on as next year after Follow Me. It's Connect. Oh boy. If you think it's rough now, introverts, get ready for 2024.
You'll be fine. Don't listen to Randy, or you will be able to connect on the way that you want to connect. We're not going to.
We're not going to do that to you. It'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
But I think that to be
actually
specific,
introverts desire connection,
and sometimes they're actually better at the really long-term, deep connection.
I think that's almost, I would agree with that.
Just like those that are extroverts.
But what a cool way to just demonstrate that idea and to start thinking about that. And so we didn't have a ton of questions. Joe M. had a comment and said, imagine being in pain and ailing and being in Jesus' presence and not asking for healing. And he said, this is how we struggle, holding on to the pain and knowing who can heal, but not asking. And I think for what the Chosen has done also is put you into that. Tammy and I were talking about this briefly during GLS, during the break, and because Dallas was interviewed during GLS.
Yeah, Global Leadership Summit.
Global Leadership Summit.
Time. By the way, that's happening again next year right here.
Right here at WholeLife Church.
Dates are already ready up, and
we'll let you know when the tickets are available.
They're now. Right now, you get 40% off right now if you order before, I think, Friday.
Oh, well, we better put that deal on the website.
No, we could.
It's wholelife.church/GLS. Oh, I'm going to have to change that to 24. So I'll have to change it. So wholelife.church/GLS24. You'll find the link there. And in the show notes.
I don't know. I don't want to tangent it too much, but did you enjoy Global Leadership Summit?
No, I think I think that was a logical place to go because this year we talked during GLS, part of the talk, Craig Rochelle, who I love a ton as a speaker and as a thought leader. Many years at Catalyst and at GLS, I've seen him in person many times, and I thought that his opening talk on trust and that in today's world, we're immediately at a huge disadvantage compared to the normal trust that people would give you in the past, and that you're now leading from that position. And the other part was just leading from where you are, whether you find yourself whether it's a top leadership position or you're not really sure if you're a leader, but you're a leader. Everyone's a leader to somebody and to someone in their realm, which I thought was really a great reminder that we all make a difference by our words, our actions, and who are we leading? We're leading people to Jesus. And to think about needing that much more trust, our job has been more difficult, but we just have to be just the transparency and empathy. And there was one other one I thought I was going to remember, but I didn't write it down.
Track record.
Was it track record that he laid down the three big, not oversharing, but being transparent, being empathetic, and just being consistent.
Consistent.
Yeah,
track
consistent
record.
track
There's
record.
4 of them actually.
Was there 4? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought day 1 was really superb, and then day 2 was, I think, maybe even better. So definitely
just like Michael Jr.
There was a ton of people to like. I didn't think anyone was like. Usually go to a conference and there's 1 or 2 people like, well, I think I'm going to get a cup of coffee.
Michael Jr.
Michael
was their
Jr.
surprise guest, and he was excellent.
He was best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Actually, this summit was I think will go down in my top 5 at least.
Should I tell him what your text was to me?
Top 10. What's that?
The text you sent me early on, I think 2 or 3 hours in on Thursday. Okay, we'll keep moving.
All right. One of my favorites was
no, he liked
it. Was a good text.
It was a positive text.
Yeah.
He
It was
really
a good
liked
text.
it. It was.
Yeah. It was good, but I'm not going to disparage any other workshops I've been to.
One of my favorites was McManus. There was a couple people that were like, "This guy is yelling all the time. He didn't stop yelling till his last 3 paragraphs." But to me, I really resonated. That was he had an amazing talk.
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it all. I thought it was well done.
Sent the the CEO for the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, right.
She was so fun.
Yeah.
And just really
everyone had a good spin on it.
It was good.
And it was really, really good.
Well done.
And I thought the people that attended, we got we talked to a bunch of people afterwards how much they enjoyed
that was
it. They
fun
brought their
too.
teams.
Cross-pollinating with leadership from the
and that's such a huge thanks to Advent Health and the Leadership Institute at Advent Health for partnering with us on this. I thought that there was just it was incredible, and they fed us. I mean, I have never eaten that well at a summit before.
Right.
So
Yeah.
apparently neither had some of the others.
No, I all the way around. And, at WholeLife, we like to think we do things a little differently. And I think the little bit of different that we are, I think really resonated and it gelled really, really well with the people that came. We got a lot of great feedback and a lot of people who are looking forward to bringing more people next year. I have a feeling
And we'll learn to do it even better next year.
Yeah, we'll be even better. Yeah. All right, one more I wanted to get to comment, and then we will wrap this up. Rosie said, I think people run from healing in part because of the accountability aspect. It's vulnerable to admit that you need help. We are so blessed to have a healer that offers healing 24/7, but healing isn't a linear process either. Every day there needs to be a conscious decision to choose healing. Aaron said, I think we run because of the fear of the unknown, and I think those are all legitimate and things that we have to think about. And
that's a very good point. What happens after I'm healed, right?
Yeah. No, then what do I do? Then part of it is my expectations for myself would go up after I've been healed. So certainly that must be what Jesus would want. But the final thing I wanted to say about the episode was, when here you see them at night, you can see their breath. It's cool outside, and not saying that this is what happened, but when you see Jesus who is sweating profusely, he can barely stand up. His mom comes and washes his feet and is the only person that does anything. And if your heart doesn't drop out at just the bottom of your stomach and you just feel like, to me, it added a personal touch that reminds us that we like to beat up on the children of Israel. We like to beat up on the apostles. Yeah, they were there the whole time. They should have known better. They were sitting with them. And it's like, that would have been me. I would have been Peter right there doing the same thing and then going, oh, my goodness. We didn't do anything. We didn't even bring him any food. They could have brought him something. I'm not saying he would have stopped, but they did absolutely nothing. And when he walks by, wow. And then mom comes and takes care of him and he goes to sleep, but he's just spent. Yeah. And I think he probably spends a lot of days yet worrying about and thinking about and taking care of us in ways we don't even have any idea about how much that is and how much he wants to be next to us. Yeah. So it's kind of a sweet and bitter.
It is just a movie. However, it does awaken those questions.
It's in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't put
special guest next week.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Special guest. And I thought I put it in here, but hold on. Let's go to the Google Drive really quickly to see.
One of my favorite. This is Jeff's favorite episode, I do believe.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It's coming up, and Carla Meunier will be preaching it. For those of you who wonder what the thought process is and who preaches when, I thought that I was going to probably be having to drive one or both of my children back to school. And so I, right about this time, so I'd asked Carla to take a sermon in case I needed to be gone. Well, it turns out that I'm not going to be gone. I'll be here. But I thought, you know what? It'll be great to have Carla preach. And so
I'm looking forward to it.
One of my favorite things is to have our team, the other pastors on staff, preaching occasionally so that you can hear a variety of voices and ideas. And she'll be preaching on Nathaniel and I Saw You Under the Fig Tree.
Man, that's a good... I don't know. You know, we could put our names on each one of these as favorites.
So I read her sermon...
Oh, you got a sneak
peek?
About
a month ago. She's been working on it, and it was good a month ago. And she's told me she's like refined it further. I don't know how she made it. It was really good already. And so I'm actually going to be seeing with her this afternoon and looking over it a little bit to see how she's refined it further. But it was already outstanding. I told her at the time, I was like, if this is a rough draft, that's incredible. So, yeah, Excellent. You guys are in for a real treat this Sabbath, hearing her speak, and so you'll definitely not want to miss out on that.
So swipe up in today's show notes if you haven't seen this message or this episode, because it's season 2, episode 2, I Saw You, and the link is there directly to thechosen.tv, so you can go and watch it and get ahead of time. Or if you're local, come on Friday night at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Don't make Ken watch it by himself.
Yeah, that's boring. And Randy, I will be out of time. I'll actually be on a plane about that time.
There's
and
times
so
where
I'm going to miss it too.
I'll actually get input that helps me with my sermon the next day.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Carla, you might not want to go because you could mess up everything you've...
I think Carla did say that she's going to take a bit of a pass this Friday night.
Don't be influenced in any way.
Carla has been really helpful Friday nights.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Popcorn.
Making popcorn.
Because
it's the delicious kind, too, right?
It's the good kind. Yeah, for sure. So that's coming up this week. Again, if you're local, 7 o'clock, third floor, room 305. We got it all set up. It's in the big screen and popcorn and refreshments. And come and hang out and then listen to, Ken, you'll probably have a couple things to say before and after, like normal,
usually
or maybe?
It's usually just hearing your thoughts.
And they do know how to get to it via the Chosen app, right?
The link is in the show notes.
Okay.
So it's it'll take you either on phone or
Get the
desktop.
Chosen app.
Yeah.
Go ahead and pay it forward, too.
Yeah, you can do that.
Go ahead and help them make more seasons and support good, great, and I wouldn't say good, great content. Yeah. I like the chosen.tv. That's their specific website. You don't have to go through the Angel Work Network and all that. And so that helps them, number one. And then number two, I think they're viewing the way they've got the seasons laid out. When you click watch, scroll down, and it's season 1, 2, and 3, and then all the background stuff, which I find cool.
So it's all easy to find all the post-episode stuff or pre-episode content that they have. So Carla next week, that'll be fun. Yeah. And I told her she has to come to the podcast. So I will probably get all that prepared on the plane on the way home on Monday. So I'm ready for you guys on Tuesday, and we'll be back next Wednesday for the next episode. So thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week.